there, everyone, and welcome to another episode. We got another movie review, folks. That is right. We are back, and we are going to be looking at A Haunting in Venice, another Hercule Poirot mystery, which totally took us all by surprise, because I thought after Death in the Nile, I thought he was done with these. And I'm actually excited to talk about this one. It, was very interesting. It was almost poised as a horror movie when I first saw the trailer for it. And then Poirot shows up and it's like, oh, this is definitely not a this is a total murder mystery instead of a haunting and a horror movie, because that's what they've started portraying it as. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And I love period pieces anyway. So this is really, really awesome. And we've got a great crew to talk all about this. Of course, Mr. Mike Gordon is here.
Howdy.
And we are joined, of course, by our movie reviewer, Ashley Pauls.
Hello.
And joining us for the very first time, welcome, Kelley Ceccato. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. My husband and I saw this film this past Friday night, and I have some interesting and potentially controversial opinions about it.
Uh-oh. All right, folks. This is who we're going to throw tomatoes at. Just remember that.
Okay.
Yes. So, this is where we're going to be interested to see. And we definitely are going to spoil the heck out of this one.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Be prepared, because we're going to talk all about it. Before we get started, though, Kelley, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am a classic film fan. My favorite types of movies are movies from the 30s up through the end of World War II. Although I do like a few things from the 60s and 70s. The 30s and the 40s are kind of where my heart lives, especially when it comes to horror. Love classic horror.
So you like the old monster movies and such, or?
I love the old monster movies. I love Frankenstein, Dracula, The Invisible Man, Claude Rains, Boris Karloff, and Vincent Price do not get enough recognition for being awesome actors.
Sure.
Let's see. I love animation, both old school and also both old school and new school. And I'm also a writer and performer with the Atlanta Radio Theater Company.
Nice.
I'm a fan of fantasy fiction and fantasy film and television. And I'm looking forward to talking about this movie.
That is awesome. We're very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say, especially when you brought up the word controversy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's very interesting to see what we have to say about it and everything.
Oh, well, it's not a mean opinion.
Okay.
Just so everybody would know that this is
Okay. You've been warned.
Nothing's going to be nasty or unkind.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, because other people also have some opinions on this too. So, so let's get started, Mr. Mike. Ready to take this away?
Absolutely. I think we can definitely say the countdown to Halloween has started a little early this year, because we are going to Haunting. We like to start off with a box office review, and unfortunately, the box office numbers are not great. As a matter of fact, this past weekend was the worst of the year. Well, second worst. The worst of the year was actually during Super Bowl weekend. This was actually the worst turnout for the movie theater this year, apart from Super Bowl weekend. And Haunting in Venice came up second. It grossed $14.5 million. It was behind The Nun 2, which opened last weekend. So I guess a lot of people who are going to the theater are wanting something spooky as well, trying to get started on the October season. But this one actually did better than Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile, when it opened a couple years ago, was only opened, I think, at the box office on that one was 12.9 million opening weekend. So, and it was first. It actually got the top spot that weekend with that. So, as bad as things seemed to be, I don't think they were as bad, but we were just coming off the pandemic and everything like that. So that there's a lot of factors in play here. As we've talked about with all the box office numbers this year, things are just different now. There is a new normal, which we're still getting used to. for anybody who's wondering, Murder on the Orient Express, the first one of these movies, actually did quite well, comparatively speaking. It did 28.7 million, but at that time, it was only third at the box office. It was behind Thor Ragnarok, which was still running, and Daddy's Home 2. So very, very interesting. I guess in the scheme of things, it came up second as far as these Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie movies go. But I think people are kind of disappointed. People are kind of looking at this as being a disappointment in some ways. What do you think, Ashley? Was this a box office wise? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily expecting this to do huge numbers. I think this is one where people will go to see it kind of spread out throughout the coming weeks and maybe even on streaming. I'm curious kind of what inspired the third sequel, because I wasn't aware that the second one did amazing at the box office. So I'm guessing maybe it was a big driver on streaming. Yeah, so I was really kind of surprised we got another one, but maybe it did really well on streaming, or maybe Kenneth Branagh just really enjoys doing these and says, I would like to do another one. And the studio said, sure, why not? So yeah, I was not really expecting this one to light the box office on fire. So I'm not necessarily surprised by how it did.
Yeah, especially since this one seems to, out of all the others, seems to have a more limited cast, let's say.
Yes.
It doesn't, there's no big, huge names in this.
You have an Academy Award winner as, somebody in this.
I love Michelle Yeoh. Let's put it that. Let's not beat about the bush. I love Michelle Yeoh, and she's amazing. She's not box office gold. Like, she's not Gal Gadot. Right. Like, so, and that one, the last one, Death in the Nile, had Gal Gadot and a lot of other names. Now, it had a name that had actually a bad reputation at that point.
Yeah, there's some unfortunate, publicity.
So this one didn't have that baggage attached to it as well. But I don't know if you, Kelley, if you follow the box office or anything, or if you have any thoughts about why this, how this did in the box office, and what your thoughts about that are.
I expect possibly because of name recognition, because Murder on the Orient Express is a title people are familiar with.
Yes.
People hear Murder on the Orient Express, they know it, and particularly if anybody's read the novel or seen the Albert Finney film, they would have gone interested to see Kenneth Branagh's take on it. And also with a certain comfort level that comes with that familiarity. If you go in, because I did know the twist going in. And
yes.
So I knew it, sort of like watching a Columbo episode. You know who did it. The whole fun is just watching it all unravel, watching it all unspool, not unravel.
And that's only if Branagh stays true to the original, right? Like with this one, you're right. This one, like Death in the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express, are familiar to people because they've been done before. This is the first time that this particular story has been done, and it's not even, they changed the title of it, right? Like, the title was originally of the book is Halloween Party, right? And that was only done once before, I think, with David Suchet when he was doing Poirot. So this is completely new territory for everybody. And even if you know that story, we'll talk about this a little bit later in detail, I'm sure, but even if you know that story, you don't know this movie, because this is not Halloween Party much at all. So if you're looking for a faithful adaptation, this thing fails on that level. Now, that's not to say it fails as a film.
But they did change Death on the Nile quite a bit.
Not this much.
No, not as much.
Not this much. No. The changes that they made to Death on the Nile, we did talk about, and they made it more about Poirot than they did, I think, about the murder. And that was my big beef with that film. So anyway, Mike, thoughts on the box office before we move on to the actual movie? Yeah,
no, it's late September. It is, after the summer season. It's before Oscar season. It's before Halloween season. And, most movies that are released in this are pretty much almost like leftovers, seeing what sticks and everything. And 14 million for a September release is not terrible. That's not a horror movie. It's a murder mystery. And, but they portrayed it in the trailer as a horror movie, like a, ghost haunting type thing. And, the first trailer we saw, we didn't even see Poirot until almost halfway through the trailer and everything. And so I think, that's what originally they were going for. And then it's like, oh, Poirot, it's like budding, ta-da type thing. And I think this will play bigger in Europe. It'll be bigger in Asia than it is in the US. And I also think because of word of mouth, because most people who've seen this have overall positive comments on this. And it's in the 70s on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that I ever go by that. It'll get word of mouth that when it streams, I think it'll probably be Max that'll go on, and it'll probably
it's Disney, it's Fox, so it will go into Hulu.
It will go to Hulu.
Yeah, it should go to Hulu because it's a Fox movie, so, or 20th Century Studios, which is owned by Disney. So technically, it's a Disney movie.
Yes, but
and I think if they're smart, they'll release it to streaming. I would release it in streaming in October, because why not? Like, go with that haunting vibe. People are looking for spooky content. If they're smart, since it didn't do bangers at the box office, I would release it right on Hulu, like, next month, and take advantage of that and see if you can get a little bump from that.
But it was interesting. And, I definitely will watch this again. Because I want to see what else I've missed, because there was a lot to this one.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it, since there, a lot to this one. So let's talk about it. Kelley, we're going to start with you, since you're the newbie to our reviews. Talk about what you expected going into this, and overall, real quick, what your feelings were coming out. Were you satisfied?
I expected it to, because it was the third in the series, and I had read some reviews, and I was expecting, and I got, and this was one of the things I really liked about the film, had atmosphere to burn, and that wonderful sense of autumn melancholy. This is an autumn movie. It feels like golden and red leaves almost. And, even the Venetian setting has that kind of autumnal quality. It's not Carnival, it's Halloween. So obviously you get this very autumn feel, which, autumn being my favorite season, definitely appeals to me. So I had good vibes going in, and I had good vibes coming out. I did like the film. I think I probably liked it just a little bit more than Matt did, but he liked it also. We had a similar issue with it. I'll go ahead and get the controversy out of the way, because I don't know how many people are going to share this view. I loved the character of Ariadne Oliver, but I thought Tina Fey was miscast. And the reason I felt she was miscast is because, well, this is something that's true, unfortunately, of a lot of American actors. And of course, I appreciated that Ariadne Oliver wasn't American, so they had to get an American actress, but American actors and actresses don't often do well in period settings. There's just something so contemporary about Tina Fey in this movie that felt, at least from me, a little bit at odds with the whole autumnal late 40s period setting. It was the one thing that didn't quite vibe. But did this miscasting, in my opinion, ruin the movie for me? No, it did not. There were a lot of other really good performances. I especially liked Jamie Dornan's performance. And we're talking spoilers here, right?
Yes.
I hated what happened to him. That actually made me angry.
Mm.
And I don't often get angry watching a Poirot murder mystery because oftentimes on some level the people who end up dying have it coming. I suppose I should
True.
have expected, they did that switcheroo with Death on the Nile, and I'd seen the Peter Ustinov film, so I knew how that was supposed to go. And then they switched it up, I think, to make it more emotionally moving, whereas you didn't have that same kind of thing. I mean, I think that was the goal. I think that was the aim, to up the emotional stakes. I don't think that in that film it didn't quite work. In this film, I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
There are emotional stakes throughout this movie, and there should be. And so, really like Jamie Dornan's performance. I thought Michelle Yeoh was amazing. I liked. I've got IMDb open on my iPad in my lap here to make sure I'm getting everybody's name right. Jude Hill, that's his name, who played the little boy, because the first time I saw him, I was expecting that I would loathe that character. And it would have been so easy for the film to go in that direction. And it didn't, which I thought was really awesome that it didn't go there. In fact, that's one of the things that I noticed about several characters. You start out thinking, "Oh God, these are horrible. These are going to be horrible people," and then it turns out,
You get to know them.
okay, there, because Miss Super Catholic religious woman. Yes, I need to find her actual Olga Camille Cottin.
Yes.
Hearing her talk about satanic and Satanism and suffer not a witch to live, all that kind of stuff that you'd expect to hear at the Salem witch trials. You're expecting this character to be just 100% repulsive. I did not like her at first at all. And then by the end, she's much more sympathetic. This has some really layered characters, and I appreciate that. And
absolutely.
Now
absolutely.
I'll let someone else have a turn.
No, absolutely. And we'll get to some of the other characters too. I mean, you gave us a good rundown of most of them. But Ashley, what about you? What were your thoughts going in? I can't remember if you were probably the most positive about Death on the Nile than any of us, probably, if I remember
think
correctly.
so, yes. I have, in general, just really enjoyed these Hercule Poirot movies. I am what I would call a new Agatha Christie fan. I am not super familiar with her work, but I'm at the point now whenever I see an adaptation of an Agatha Christie novel, I have to watch it, just because I think it's so amazing that these stories that were written many years ago are still compelling, they still manage to get me just about every time. I'm terrible solving the mystery, and somehow I've managed to remain unspoiled by all three of these stories. So I went in not knowing anything about the mystery or what would happen. So I think that was kind of fun. I'm a big fan of Kenneth Branagh in general, so I was really looking forward to this one. I did have to laugh when I first saw the trailer for this movie in theaters. I was like, oh man, too scary. There's no way I'm going to see this. Then up pops Hercule Poirot with his mustache, and I'm like, darn it, I'm in. So I would be happy if he just continued making one of these every couple years or so. And I think it's just a great testament to the power of timeless stories. Like, I mean, a good story is going to be a good story 20 years ago, 20 years from now. And these stories are still relevant and has things for us to reflect on as a modern audience. And overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought they did a good job bringing in some more elements of horror, but not going overboard or pushing believability. Everything was neatly explained by the end, although I do like they leave just a little tiny door open if you want to think that, maybe there was a little touch of haunting in the house. Maybe not, you can explain it away, or maybe it was there. So I like that they kind of left that open just a tad, especially with little teacups sitting over the table at the end. Again, maybe it was nothing, maybe there was something, but yeah, like you said, Kelley, the setting was amazing. Loved how it felt like Halloween. Autumn was spooky without being overdone. A lot of really interesting characters, especially ones who go in different directions than you think they will. Michelle Yeoh was wonderful as always. My only complaint about her character is that she died too soon. But on the other hand, like, that character was made for her. She was so good as that character. So I wouldn't have wanted to see her as anybody else. It's just such a shame. It's like, oh man, couldn't she have been like number 2 to die or something? Like, I just wish she was around a little bit more. But they do a great job with her character. Again, keeping you guessing, like, is something to this? Like, I think she's a fake, but she's really good. And then with her assistants, just as everything is revealed little by little. And something else was interesting. I was talking with my dad about, he went to see the movie with me, was how it felt nice to see a shorter movie. Like, it felt well contained, like there was enough character development, enough plot, but it wasn't stretched on too long. It was just a nice movie. We got in, we got out. And not that I don't love the big epic like superhero and sci-fi movies, but sometimes it's nice to just have a shorter movie that can tell its story, make an impact on you, and then credits roll. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I kind of maybe feel similar about Tina Fey, that she just maybe because she's so famous as a comedian in her other capacities, that when I see her, I'm like, oh, it's Tina Fey in a movie, versus some of the other characters more blend into who they're playing. But so yeah, it would have been interesting maybe if someone else had been cast in that role, how that would go. But overall, really, really enjoyed this one, and I will definitely plan to watch it again on streaming.
Mike, what about you?
It's a good question, because I agree with both the ladies, because I like Tina Fey as an actress. I love what she does. But whenever you see her, it's Tina Fey.
Yep.
We're running into that now with Only Murders in the Building. And because whenever you see her in that show, it's like, oh, it's Tina Fey. 30 Rock. Oh, it's Tina Fey.
Yeah, she's just too iconic for her own good.
Exactly. And so that's the only actor that actually took me out of this. And I loved it. The cinematography in this film was amazing. And they tried to go for the horror feel, for the mystery, for the spookiness, and they made that house spooky as hell. And I loved it. I thought that was awesome. I loved the backstory, that it was a plague house and an orphanage, and they locked the kids in there when the plague started spreading, and it's supposed to be haunted. And the story with that was just so rich. And it was believable that, that the place was cursed. And then the murders started happening. And I loved, how it was not quite Murder on the Orient Express, where everyone did it, basically. But you had a lot of people that were guilty of trying to up the feel and everything. And I liked that part. I thought it was really, really well done. I will watch Kenneth play Hercule anytime, anywhere. If this is his last, role, and he plays it for the next 20 years, I will watch him. I will watch every single one of them, because he is so frippin' good in that role. And the mustache is equally as good in that role.
More mustache. People have spoken.
Mustache is the co-star of the movie, So as I said, for the last 2 roles that he's done, who do we love in it? We love Ken Branagh, and we also love the mustache. It's pretty damn amazing, and that's part of the fun with these movies. And I loved how he was typical Poirot. Right from the middle of the seance with the typewriter, and him figuring out that there was someone hiding up the, fireplace and everything. And I'm one of those people who figure these things out in my head, and I kind of figured out why he got knocked on the head. I figured out why, how he was seeing things and everything fairly quickly. But them getting to it was a ton of fun. It was. And that kid was, I thought the kid was the mastermind behind everything for a little bit.
Yeah, for a while. I did too.
And it was like, oh, he's the one all behind this, because he was so, he was scary how, cold and collective he was. He was not a kid. It's like, he's not a real kid. He's a midget. He has to be, or something. Oh, sorry. Little person. I shouldn't say
when parents need taken care of, when you have a parent who has, in this case, PTSD and possibly some substance abuse issues as well, then oftentimes what happened, and one flaw that stuck out for me a little bit was there's no mention at all of that child's mother, as far as I'm aware.
No, none. They did not once mention the mother.
And so obviously, obviously she's dead. She's dead. Either she's dead or she left. She's out of the picture. So the boy has to step up and, in a sense, take care of his father. And you have the father even telling him, I should be looking after you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a boy who has to step into an adult role before he is supposed to.
Oh, very much. He grew up way too quick.
Didn't surprise me at all. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, no, he grew up completely way too quick. He didn't even want to hang out with the other kids, the other orphans, to play the games, hear the stories and everything. And it was real interesting. And he didn't want to celebrate in Halloween. All he wanted to do was be in his book and be ready to help his dad whenever needed.
Yeah. He's lost his childhood.
Exactly. But yeah, I loved all the characterizations, from the bodyguard to the two Hungarian refugees to the ex-jilted fiance. There was so many good roles, and the nanny or the housekeeper was awesome. So, and then Michelle Yeoh, she's awesome in everything.
Yeah, and she definitely makes her exit way too soon. And
went out with a splash, that's for sure.
Oh, too soon.
I didn't think much of Death in the Nile. I thought that Branagh was taking way too many liberties with the main character, making it more about him than the actual mystery, and I thought that movie suffered tremendously for it. I did like his adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express. It's probably my third favorite version of that movie, of that plot, but it's still pretty good. And this one was I was like you, Mike, I was surprised that they were greenlit to do another one. But I guess, Kenneth put on his salesman suit and said, I can do another one. I can do it for only $60 million. And I can make it a horror movie. How about that? And that's probably what sold Fox at the time on this. And for the most part, he delivers. I mean, it's not a star-studded cast by any means like the other two, but I mean, I think that makes it feel it's a lot more enclosed, and it doesn't feel as open. It's very atmospheric. Credit to Branagh and the cinematographer for some beautiful shots of Venice.
Oh, really true.
I mean, even that final shot of Poirot on the roof talking to his new client, and it just sort of spins and spins and spins, and you see more and more and more of the city. And part of me's thinking, wow, they had to really use some CG to get rid of all the modern stuff about it, but still, I was just fascinated. I'm like, I could watch this shot like all day. Like, this is just gorgeous. Like, and so much, it's just dripping with atmosphere. just dripping with Halloween atmosphere, especially since it takes place like in the 40s, just after the World War or whatever. And it's just like, those the kids' costumes, the bobbing for apples, like everything just feels like you can just feel it. You can the walls are kind of dripping with atmosphere as well. The seance is filmed beautifully. It's creepy. You don't know what's going to happen next. And of course, the acting. And I think that's been one of the biggest knocks I've seen against this movie. Well, I've seen some other knocks about the writing and the slow pacing, but I attribute that to just people who are more modern and they don't have like classic sensibility. Because if you're used to watching these kind of movies, they kind of just move at this kind of pace. You're not looking. I mean, this is not an actioner. This is not a jump scare behind every corner. Although there's a couple of jump scares in here.
They got me.
But yeah, I did see some criticism about the acting, especially I did see some regarding Tina Fey. I actually like her performance in this. I'm going to say it. I think her and Poirot make a kind of a good team. Like I kind of like that. Out of all the sort of seconds he's had in these movies, I kind of felt like she was kind of more lively and challenging him. And I was really, of course, knowing the character from, the other adaptations and everything, I was really surprised when it turns out that she's, kind of against him, like she's working against him. I kind of wish Michelle Yeoh's character was around longer so that we could see the results of that, like from her. But Jamie Dornan is great too. He's always puts in a good performance. Here he's almost understated. Like for as out there as Tina Fey is, Jamie Dornan is like internalizing everything, and it's just kind of like it's just a weird contrast. Camille Cotton, I'm not used to seeing her. I don't think I've seen her in anything before, but she impressed the heck out of me in this. Kelly Riley always puts in a great performance, and she's awesome in this as well. And I mean, it kind of it's a surprise, but it's not a surprise that she's the villain of the piece, right? So I think it works on a lot of levels. As I said before, it is not a faithful adaptation of Halloween Party by any means. Mm-hmm. So I rewatched the David Suchet version of Halloween Party just this weekend as well, just to refresh my memory. And it is solid as well. I recommend anybody can check that out because it is a interesting contrast to this, and it is actually done pretty well as well. I'm not saying one is better or worse. But I would say look at both of them because they're both really kind of cool mysteries and really well done and very atmospheric for Halloween. I think both of them work for Halloween. I at some point I'll probably read the original novel as well, but yeah, because I understand there's some differences there too. But this is not a very faithful adaptation, which is fine. I mean, Kenneth, they changed the name, they changed the location, they changed a lot of characters around. So this is really, I'm looking at this as being his own mystery rather than adapting faithfully a Christie one. And I think it still works. In fact, I think it might be the best of the three.
I think so too. I actually enjoyed this one more than I liked Death on the Nile. And I'll put it just above actually Murder on the Orient Express for these versions.
And it could be because this one for us is original. We don't know what's going to happen, whereas the others we're familiar with, you know? So we knew kind of, we're watching it with as you said, Kelly, a comfort level because we know how it's going to play out. Whereas this one, it's like, I have no idea what's going on.
There's also a different emotional tilt, I think, because you contrast this with Murder on the Orient Express. Everybody hated that guy. And with really good reason.
Yeah, because it's Johnny Depp, right? No, just
it is very satisfying to see him make that decision that, hey, I'm gonna you walk free. With this one, you've got an initial victim the young girl. And this is someone whom nobody hated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No one hated this girl. Even the person who killed her didn't hate her.
Good call.
And so no one actually had a motive to destroy this young woman. And so you're going into this with a sense of tragedy, which is something we really don't see in the other films. Now, I did find it interesting comparing Branagh's version of Death on the Nile to the Peter Ustinov film, which was that in the Peter Ustinov film, Lois Childs, who's the main murder victim, is a total brat, and you're not sorry to see her go. Whereas in Branagh's film, although her situation within the story is the same, Branagh, I think, directs Gal Gadot to play that role to the point where you actually sympathize with her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, she senses this enmity from everybody around her except the person who is going to destroy her.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit more, I think, of an empathy going on. With Death on the Nile, it didn't really quite work because it was at odds with the original story.
Yeah.
With this one, it worked beautifully. And, the fact that you have another victim, Dr. Ferrier, who just so didn't have it coming when he, again, his death made me angry. It's like, how dare you? There is no good reason why anyone would wish this man dead. And then, as it turns out, again, it was because of it.
His son.
Sad. Everyone's innocent and yet everyone's guilty because because it turns out it was the boy doing the blackmailing. And then you had both Michelle Yeoh's character and Jamie Dornan's character murdered for things that they totally didn't do.
No, that's true. That's true.
It makes this just again, the emotional stakes are higher. You give a damn.
Yeah,
in a way
absolutely.
That there's not this kind of clinical detachment that you have when you're watching some murder mysteries.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's interesting too. I like the fact that I really appreciate, especially after Death in the Nile, that Branagh pulled it back a little bit. So Poirot still got, in addition to a mystery to solve, he still got stakes in this because he's challenged as to whether or not he's really seeing supernatural events or he's trying to find logical explanations for them. And that's a challenge to him. And I did appreciate that. Now, there is also a sense that he is retired because he is depressed about and over somebody's death, and we don't quite know the details on that, which is a little frustrating. But then again, I don't need to see it because I don't want to see more about him. I want to see more about like what's going on with the characters and everything like that. So it's possible we might get that, but we'll see.
What makes it interesting is this story takes place 10 years almost after Death of the Nile. So, which is nice because you get a more weary Poirot. And it's interesting because he is, last time we saw him, he shaved off the mustache and, and went off, with jazz singer. And,
I don't mind if he goes off with a woman, but shaving up that mustache. I mean, I like the fact that the mustache here was a little more subtle too. I mean, It's not quite as extravagant as the other two movies.
Which was interesting because, like in the first one, you saw he wore like a sock or something over it at night to keep it warm, So, because mustaches have feelings too, so But it's interesting, and that was one of the things I loved about this because he was more cautious. He was more like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. I really don't." He was hiding from the world, literally, in his in his house in Venice, and he went out, and he was, people were trying to get him to work for him, and to do work for them and everything, cases and everything. And I loved how they were showing that people were chasing after him, and the bodyguard kept on throwing him into the canals and everything, which was awesome.
Yeah, that same bridge and same canal that we just saw in Mission Impossible.
Dangerous place, folks.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't. I'm not. Yeah. If I ever go to Venice, I'm going to watch out for that bridge, because it doesn't bode well.
It has a slippery spot right there. So
it's a killer.
Yeah.
Ashley, what about you? Was there any performances or anything else about the movie that of note for you?
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else has been saying. I liked all the layers to the characters. Someone we haven't really talked about too much yet is the ex-fiance. I was pretty sure it's like, man, this guy seems real rotten. Like, he comes in, he's got an attitude. It's like he's guilty of something. I don't know if he's guilty of the murder, but he's guilty of something. And then I loved how they were able to turn that around. Like, he did make some mistakes, but he had regrets, and he came because he was wanting to kind of atone for his past some. So I like that he wasn't just like a spoiled guy that was just chasing money. Like, they added some more interest to his character. And having Poirot take the honey that was poisoned, I like how him seeing the supernatural stuff kind of unsettled him, because Poirot is always like super confident, cool, and collected. Like, he knows logic, he knows how to solve these cases, but he's doubting his own mind, which is his weapon, and basically of self-defense, and his tool that he uses to solve these mysteries. So when he's starting to doubt himself, especially as he's seeing these things, but he can tell that nobody else around him is.
And it seems like he's running to the bathroom every like 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Which, if you think about that, like, if that would disconcert me. So yeah, I thought it made him definitely some real moments of vulnerability and humanity, seeing him kind of second guess himself there.
Absolutely. Kelley, what about you? Any sort of final notes on the movie?
Well, I was disappointed a little bit that the puppet guy wasn't a main character.
The puppet guy.
The puppet guy.
Puppet show was gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I wanted to see more of the puppet guy.
Yeah.
And that I find shadow puppets fascinating.
Yes.
The whole Lottie Reniger, the Adventures of Prince Ahmed, all that kind of thing. And the way that was photographed. The way that they showed the screen that the kids were watching, and then how they were working everything behind the curtain, switching back and forth between reality and illusion. And then the guy with that narration and his voice
his voice was awesome.
I love distinctive voices. That's actually one thing I miss about classic cinema. I don't think modern cinema has as many of those. I wish there were more of those voices. Like, I think Willem Dafoe has one of those.
Oh, sure.
Where if I recognize his voice, and yet it's not like distracting or taking you out of the movie like it's Tina Fey. Maybe Octavia Spencer should have played Ariadne Oliver. She would have made an awesome.
That would have. I could have seen that. Yeah,
Octavia Spencer or Viola Davis.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
For one thing, both of those actresses are comfortable with period settings.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been neat, particularly after we saw Salome Otterborn cast as a woman of color, Sophie Okonedo. That was also something I wish had been different about Death on the Nile. It's like, you've got Sophie Okonedo, give her more to do. I mean, she's awesome when he gives her an opportunity to be front and center. But it's like, do more with her. I think that was a case of cast bloat, where you just had so many people and you wanted to know more about so many of these people, and there just wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
So there was a sense of dissatisfaction that I certainly didn't feel with this one. But anyway, yeah,
Good.
back to what I said. I would like to have seen more of the puppet guy, and I would like to have seen Octavia Spencer or Viola Davis playing Ariadne Oliver.
Nice choices. Nice choices. I would not argue with that at all. And I like Tina Fey so in this movie. So and I'm afraid that I was actually thinking halfway through the movie, I was like going, wow, I could see them teaming up in another movie going forward. But of course, that's not going to happen because of unless they do a prequel to this or whatever. And I don't know. Anyway, so Ashley, we'll start with you. Final thoughts. Do you recommend the movie, and do you want to see more?
Yes, on all counts. I really enjoyed going to see the movie. It was a great way to kick off the fall movie season for me, and also kind of get into Halloween season. Although I've already had my Halloween decorations up, like September 1st, it's instantly Halloween season in my mind. So, but it was a cozy mystery, and I would definitely watch this again. I did get a chance to see it in IMAX, which this is not necessarily the type of film you have to see in IMAX, but gosh, it sure looked good in IMAX.
Yeah,
so
I bet it looked great.
I did not regret that decision, and I would love to see more of this Hercule Poirot, just bringing forward some more of the mysteries, maybe even some ones that are less done. Like there are Agatha Christie mysteries that are really popular that have been done a lot. I would maybe some deeper cuts, or even do some original stories kind of inspired by some of her works that are still faithful and honor and pay tribute to the contribution she made to the mystery genre. But yeah, I think there's room to kind of explore and do some original things with the character too. So hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it in the Dolby Theater that I usually go to, and it sounded great too. The music and the sound effect, everything just worked on that level too, on this one too. Kelley, real quick, do you recommend it, and do you want to see more? And is there a specific Agatha Christie or Poirot thing you want to see tackled next?
I do recommend it. It's, there are far in terms of balancing virtues versus flaws. I think the virtues far outweigh the flaws. And I think those who like this sort of thing will find this the sort of thing they like.
Nice.
And so if you like a slow burn murder mystery with a lot of atmosphere, and you don't expect people to be punching each other or shooting each other or some pyrotechnic going off here or there, this is a movie for grown-ups. It's about grown-ups, and despite the kid, of course you got the kid, but it is a grown-up movie. It's a mature movie, which sadly I think may be one of the reasons why it ended up number 2 at the box office behind The Nun 2.
Probably.
Yet I can't help but think the grown-up movie will find the grown-up audience, because let's face it, grown-ups are underserved. Grown-ups are particularly underserved by mainstream movie releases. Grown-ups have to go to the art houses. But of course, you did have Oppenheimer. You did have a couple of more grown-up movies. I actually thought that Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was, despite being about a child protagonist, I thought there was something very mature in the way that movie was made.
Very nice.
That made me really crushed when it didn't do better at the box office.
So do you want to see more of these?
Yes, I want to see more. Yes, I want to see more Poirot mysteries. I want to see more grown-up movies. I want to see more period atmosphere. I want period pieces to come back.
Well, we've got a couple more on the schedule this year, so I think we're going to get your wish.
Please be good. Please be good.
And speaking of William Dafoe, I saw a trailer for Poor Things before this movie, and man, does that look interesting! I really wanted to see that one. Mike, what about you? What do you approve of this one, and do you want to see more?
Yes, and yes, of course. I definitely want to. I've read probably close to 20 of the different Poirot books. And there's so many great tales to tell still. I don't want to keep on seeing, the same ones over and over and over again, because this is what we've seen, 3 versions of Death on the Nile, 4 versions, at least, exactly. 4 versions of, Murder on the Orient Express, at least. And, and so I would love to do it. And if Kenneth wants to, here, take my money, basically.
The 60 million, that's it's cheap, 60 million.
Well,
Can I say one more thing
Patreon money, so it'll be good.
Yeah, we're gonna need a couple more.
That's right.
Need a couple more patrons for that.
Sponsored by the ESO.
Can I say one more thing before
Sure.
we're done? I know I've
Go ahead, Kelley.
final thought. I want to see Miss Lemon on the big screen.
Yes. There's Agatha Christie has so many great detectives, and Poirot is just not the only one. There's so many out there that she worked on, and let's see more of them up there. And if Kenneth wants to direct them, by all means, I think that would be amazing.
I think the thought was that since Knives Out was so successful, I think that all Hollywood was like, "Ooh, the murder mystery films are back. Let's do them." And that's what gave Branagh sort of a green light to bring back Poirot. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out quite the way that they wanted, so I don't know the likelihood of we'll see him. But I mean, we have got a lot of Christie adaptations recently on streaming, so I do imagine those will continue. But I did like this as well. I as I said, I think it's been a while since I've seen Murder on the Orient Express, but I'm pretty comfortable saying this is the best one of the 3, but I look forward to seeing this one again. I hope they do stream it around Halloween, because that would be awesome to watch around then at that time too. And yes, I want to see more. I'm always wanting to see more Agatha Christie and on the big screen. And, they took such license with this story that it would be really foolish for me to say, hey, they should do this one, because they'll probably just change the heck out of it anyway. So just more of this. I don't want to see a repeat of this per se. I don't want to see another spooky, atmospheric, version, but I would like to, or story by them, but I would like to see, this particular way that Hercule was portrayed by Branagh to continue. Like, it's not all about him. Let's make it more about the mystery and the other characters, and then that's the formula that works for me. So, all right. So we have now,
Mr. Mike. I did hear one rumor though.
What's that?
I heard Earth Station Who was going to be reviewing a Doctor Who episode talking about Agatha Christie soon.
We will. And what's interesting is that the actress that plays Agatha Christie in that story is actually in the David Suchet version of the Halloween Party.
Oh, well, there you go, full circle.
Must see it.
So that's a nice tie-in right there. So good call there, Mike. And on that note, we will be right back and close out the show.
Okay, you two folks, this is where we get to talk about whatever we feel like talking about, but usually we tie it into the topic that we're talking about and stuff. And let's go a little bit further into Hercule Poirot and even Kenneth Branagh. It's interesting because you could tell it's a passion project for him, and he really likes the characters, but it's, and there hasn't been many projects that he has done that I have not liked by him. I've watched the murder mysteries he did on PBS. Those were really good.
Wallander?
Yeah, Wallander.
What it's called?
Yeah. And, him with a Swedish accent or Norwegian accent. It was just a little rough.
Yeah,
but,
as opposed to his Belgian one here.
Oh, of course. This is perfect compared to that. So
I must admit, Mike, when you started the show, I was very shocked that you did not start this show like this and start recording.
No, I had thought about it, but I would quickly turn into Inspector Clouseau if I ended up doing that.
Oh yeah.
So, I just know my limits and I know where I would go with that. So it's okay. But here's the question and topic for you guys. Would you guys, what other, mysteries would you guys like to see on movies from other novels? We've had, Knives Out. We've had Sherlock Holmes. Would you want to see more? What else what other murder mysteries? There's tons out there,
I would like to see maybe another adaptation of Wilkie Collins, The Moonstone, The Woman in White. Those have usually ended up on television, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would like to see one of those novels be given the big budget treatment because I think it would be so gorgeous and atmospheric on the big screen.
For sure.
Um, I again, this is my fondness for period pieces coming through, and I am eager for the next Benoit Blanc movie, and just hoping we'll get another one from Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig soon. But I do want to see more. I would like to see more adaptations of some of the older classics. Not everything has to be contemporary.
No, I would love to see, and this is just off the top of my head, I'd like to see like maybe more Sam Spade or some Mike Hammer, some more of like the noir type stuff.
I don't know. I'm kind of suspicious of some of the misogyny elements in those. I'm not sure I'd like to see if they maybe could dial that back, because I think it was a product of its time, late 1940s. The soldiers
That's the
coming
lady who
home
loves all
wanting
those
ladies
films and everything.
back into the kitchen. So no, anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're fine because this is conversation. This isn't, okay, this is what you're saying. This is what you're saying. The way we do this is it's a conversation between us. We want to talk and everything. And when you talk to somebody, do you usually jump in? Yes, of course I do. He does. She does. I've seen it. So I know what it's like. So you're more
I would
than
like to see more lady detectives.
that would be awesome.
I mean, I love the Miss Fisher series on Acorn TV.
Yes.
That's what I loved about Veronica Mars, and stuff like that. So, always I would love to see some really good, female detective work. I think that was awesome. And it doesn't have to be a detective with superpowers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you, Jessica Jones. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just my girl, Jessica.
So what about you guys? What do you guys think? What do you want to see?
I would be interested in someone doing a revised adaptation, maybe more from pulling some of the horror and mystery of like the H.P. Lovecraft, which I haven't read a lot of his works. My husband and I, there's a board game we really like set in that universe. As an author, he has a lot of problematic factors, shall we say, with some icky stuff like racism and things like that. But to have somebody that could maybe take some of that supernatural horror and mystery kind of set in a period setting and do a more modern adaptation with nuanced characters, I think there could be some really interesting possibilities there.
There are some novels that have played around in the Lovecraft universe. You've got The Ballad of Black Tom, the novella, and Ruth Anna Emrys's books. Adaptations of those books, which take the Lovecraft universe,
yes,
get rid of the racism and sexism.
Yeah. I think this is definitely a case where if you do inspired by the source material, but go your own way, I think would be a good thing in this case. Like, we don't want you to necessarily adapt the universe, but take some of the ideas and kind of that setting is something I don't think we've seen in live action could really be interesting, but I would want it set in like a period setting.
Oh, yeah.
I think would be important.
Wintertide.
Yes.
Be a good one to
yes.
Do you think they've like overdone like characters like Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that? Or do you think that's still what modern audiences want to see?
I would maybe kind of like a break from some of those characters, and maybe it's just a little bit I'm experiencing not necessarily franchise fatigue with all franchises, but just exploring some other things that are a little bit newer. So I think for classic characters like Sherlock Holmes, let that rest a little bit, shine a light on some other characters and story possibilities.
And that's coming from someone who's written a Holmes story.
Yes, yes. So it's like I love all these things dearly, 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 but sometimes it's good to go off the beaten path, let it rest, and then maybe in like 10 years or so, somebody will come back with a really intriguing concept for these characters. But there's so much great stuff out there. It would be nice to see some other characters sharing the spotlight a little bit.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Mikey, what about you?
First of all, I didn't mention this in the main show, but if anybody's looking for some sort of thriller, noirish thriller mystery to sink their teeth into that Kenneth Branagh is responsible, if they haven't seen Dead Again from 1991, they need to see that. That is an excellent movie.
That's an amazing movie.
And it's been so long since I've seen it as well, but I was reminded very much of it, not because it's the same at all. It's very different than Haunting in Venice, but it's so good. And it's one of his early stories. And I think if people don't think that he is capable of making a great mystery thriller whodunit, like they should definitely watch Dead Again. He's really tapping into his love for Hitchcock on that one. As far as
in that movie though, because it has a great cameo by Robin Williams on top.
Sure, absolutely. There's the whole cast is great. I mean, that's when he was still with Emma Thompson and they were getting along, and that she has a great performance in that too, and et cetera, et cetera. But as far as detectives go, there's a detective that was created by Walter Mosley, and Walter Mosley is an author who has done a lot of mysteries. He has got a character called Easy Rawlins, who is a detective, an African-American detective. But the author has worked on Justified. He was a consulting producer on Justified City Primeval. He's done some other really good work too. But his novels, I've never read any of his novels, but I did see the first movie that was based on Easy Rawlins as a character, and it was Devil in the Blue Dress. And it starred Denzel Washington. This is in 1990. Speaking of the early 90s. Really great movie, and I'm kind of surprised that they've never followed up. There's been almost 10, 12 novels featuring that character, and I'm very surprised that they've never followed up with that, because you don't really see too many, especially during that time period, set in that time period. The challenges of being an African-American detective really, really work for me as far as that story goes, and I would love to see that played out further. So that would be my vote. If I was going to do a series of movies or a TV series of based on a detective, like if HBO is looking for their next True Detective or whatever, that's what I would pick, because I think that has a lot of relevant, actually interesting angles to it.
That's awesome.
And I mean, Denzel Washington, you had me at that. So
yeah, if you could get Denzel to be in it as well. I mean, he's a little older now. I mean, obviously he's a lot older than that now, but a lot of times older actors still can make it work. Although they just did a Marlowe movie, what was it, last year or the year before, with Liam Neeson, and my God, he was just way too old to be playing Marlowe in that. It's not a terrible movie, but but I mean, he kind of plays it as he is an older guy, but it's still I wouldn't want to see that. But hey, if you get, I hear Denzel's son is a good actor, so why not keep it in the family?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
No, one of the other characters I would love to see more of the books turned into movies or TV movies or whatever. Recently they did a new version of Fletch and John Hamm, and I definitely think I would love to see more of the Fletch books come to life, because those were so good. I used to, when I worked in a bookstore, I usually went through one of those a week and just put it back on the shelf afterwards. And it was awesome. It was awesome reading those and enjoying them. I liked the Chevy Chase first one, second one not so much, but it was interesting to be able to see Fletch, and then of course, John Hamm taking over. I had gotten really excited at one point because Kevin Smith had bought the rights to it, and he was going to get Ben Affleck or Jason Lee to play Fletch, and which both would have been great when they were younger. But the contract ran out, so it was good to see when the John Hamm version came out. I don't know how it did or anything. I enjoyed it, but I don't know what other folks have said about it and everything. But I would love to see John Hamm do it more. But even him, I think he's a little bit too old for the role.
Oh, I just want to see more John Hamm.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I never watched Mad Men. Mad Men was not to my taste, but I was smitten with I got smitten with John Hamm in Good Omens.
Yeah, I was going to say, after watching Good Omens, I've seen a lot of John.
You saw more than you really wanted to.
But but just he has a presence a bit like a classic movie actor. Mm-hmm. He has that sort of voice, that sort of like a very distinctive kind of voice, kind of charisma going on there.
I'm sorry you didn't like Mad Men, but he was amazing in that series.
I know. It just the story was not to my taste. It's not that it's bad. It's just that kind of story wasn't really appealing to me. Mm-hmm. I tend to not like stories where basically everyone's. Are we censored in this?
Not in this part.
No. Censor our language. I tend not to like stories as much where everybody's an asshole. I know that
compared to what people have said on the show, so it's okay.
Okay, but I know
Ashley's a real potty mouth.
There are a lot of shows like that. A lot of people love them, but they're just not for me. And I don't attack them or disparage them or tell other people they're wrong for loving them. They're just not for me. And I wish I wish more people would understand that. It's like not every kind of thing, even if it's really good, appeals to every taste. And so if we say something, oh, that's not for me, that's not the same thing as saying that's bad. Mm-hmm. And yet people will say, I've had this happen to me before. If I say something, it's like, that's really not for me. People will be like, I attacked their thing. No.
I know.
No, it just people, we go to entertainment seeking different things.
Everybody does, and everyone has their thing, and that's the cool thing about it. I mean, we all have our thing,
Okay, sorry, I got way off the field, but I would like to see John Hamm in a mystery. I think he has that look.
Yep, I could definitely. He's a good detective. I think.
Yeah,
he would be great with that, and I definitely think we have a lot out there, and I'm gonna get thrown to the wolves on this one, but I like seeing mysteries. I like seeing the smaller stories more than the big superhero stuff sometimes, and it's or the fast cars or the big giant robots or the world is coming to an end. I want to see good stories. I'd watch those anytime more than going to a movie and having to stare at my phone half the time because I'm bored out of my mind with the storyline and everything. So that gets old. It really, really does. So we definitely would love to hear from you.
Yeah, good thing the next movie that we're doing is not a big superhero where the world's coming to an end. Oh, wait, it is.
Oops. Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So much for that idea. All right, folks, let's close. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Kelley, you made it through your first episode.
Thank you. I want to be back.
No, you will be back. I promise you that. Thank you so much. How again can people find you? Do you want to shout out or anything?
Okay. Lowercase Nan Monroe author.com. I believe I imagine me not knowing my own URL. So
Happens to me every day, so it's okay.
no, I do have a blog under the name Nan Monroe because I've written a couple of novels under that name. So let's see, Nan Monroe author.com, I believe is where you can find it. Also, if you go to the YouTube page of the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, you can find a lot of recordings of some plays that some of them I'm in, others I've written, but just in general, the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, we do great work, and we have done some adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft.
All right.
So check us out, ARTC on YouTube.
Fantastic. And Ashley, thank you as always.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure going to the movies with you guys.
We're not going to see you now for a little bit.
I know, just because some movies have been moving to next year, including that one that I won't name here. But
Plus, she's too afraid to join us for our spooky month.
I know. I'm getting there, like, slowly, like each little bit. Like, I've got, like, Jordan Peele's got me in, like, if he does a movie, I'll see it. So I'm just, like, gradually, slowly wading into those waters. So, like, in 5 years, I'll be all in for the spooky month stuff.
Well,
nice.
No matter how many guests we end up getting, if you still want to join us for the 50th anniversary of The Exorcist, you're welcome to join us.
If I find a little spark of bravery somewhere deep inside myself, I'll let you know.
She's going to quote probably Jordan Peele and go, "Nope."
Yep, nope. I see. I like that movie knows what it's about. So,
anything you want to shout out about?
Yeah, well, speaking of Michelle Yeoh, I have been really enjoying her. I've been going back through Star Trek Discovery and kind of rediscovering that. I am feeling the absence of Strange New Worlds and Captain Pike in my life. So when I heard that he and Spock were on Star Trek Discovery, I went to check that out. So I've been really enjoying going back through it. And of course, Michelle Yeoh steals the show and she's wonderful in that. So
Giorgio, she is so awesome.
She's wonderful. And so, yeah, just another fun reminder that there's so much new stuff coming out, but it's always fun to go back if there's something that you've missed. Great stories are great stories whenever you get around to watching them. So I'm really enjoying my my journey through Star Trek lately and plan to keep going.
That's awesome. Very awesome. And Mr. Mike, we've made it through another one, my friend.
We did. And as always, it's my pleasure.
Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
Yes, my good friend, artist extraordinaire Robert Jimenez has a new book coming out. It's called, and card set actually, trading card set. It's called Polynesian Pulp, the Tiki Art of Robert Jimenez. Robert was very gracious enough to provide us with a cover for Tiki Zombie #3 and Earth Tales of the Station, Earth Station 1, Tales of the Station, Volume 3 as well. He's a great artist. He's done other work for me as well. And I have the honor of actually writing the introduction for this book. So I'm very proud of that, very honored to do so. This is some of the best work, some of the work that I originally, because of my interest in tiki art, this was the first art of his I've seen. I was introduced to, and it's just gorgeous. It's just really a specialty of his, very atmospheric. I would definitely recommend checking it out. It is available on Kickstarter now. If you want to take advantage of the Kickstarter campaign, you've only got a little over, if you're listening to this, you've only got a little bit about a week, a little over a week as we're recording this. So get on this, take advantage of it, and check it out.
Okay, my shout out just goes show. Sometimes, we have too much free time on our hands. Judy and I lately have been.
You do not. Trust me, you do not. You are one of the most schedule-heavy persons I know. You do not have too much free time on your hands. We do
have free time because you know what we've been doing lately? We've been sitting around having dinner and watching YouTube, and we've been watching old episodes of The Price is Right. That's right. In honor of Bob Barker's passing, we have been going back and watching old episodes. We actually got to watch the very first episode of The Price is Right.
Oh, that's cool.
And back when it was the 30-minute version of The Price is Right. And it was the very first episode, they called the people's names and said, Bob Johnson, please stand up. Nancy Sutton, please stand up. And then they got to the 4 people, and you're the next contestants on The Price is Right. Come on down, and then they got up and everything. And it was just neat to see how the show's evolved and everything. The one thing that freaked the living crap out of me, because this is 1972, somebody was able to guess the price of a new car. It was $2,500 for a brand new car. And it was just like, oh my God, I could afford that out of my pocket right now.
That's like one tank of gas these days.
Exactly. In some places, yeah. Especially if you're out in California. Yeah. It is. So it was just crazy. And it was fun, and the fashions and the clothes and the items that were, at the grocery stores and everything. You won this brand new modern fireplace. It was one of those like angled metal fireplaces that, and everything. I was just like, I think I saw that at my grandparents' house or something, So it's just fun to do. And if you have free time to be able to do something like that, please watch The Price is Right or old game shows. Those are just a ton of fun to be able to do it. And there's none better than Bob Barker. Bob Barker was just the most classiest and fun guy out there. So definitely check it out. All right, folks, that is going to wrap up the episode. We want to thank everyone for joining us with another movie review. We always have fun with these kind of things. And it's great having Ashley. And, Kelley, you were awesome too for your first time. Very, very cool. As always, thanks for listening to the Your Station One podcast. Remember, we couldn't do this without you. If you want to support the podcast, please check out our Tee-Public store and get some really cool ESO Network swag. Also, please remember, if you want to listen to our show before the rest of the world, why not join the ESO Network Patreon? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us here at Earth Station One. Check out the ESO Network Patreon at patreon.com/ESO Network. We also want to hear from you guys. Please write us anytime at feedback@earthstation1.com. We definitely would love to hear from you. It's one of the best ways to get, feedback or, say, hey, Mike, why not talk about this? It gives us ideas, what you guys want to hear also. Remember, you can also find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found. And now Earth Station One can be found up on Pandora and XM Radio. Tongue twister there, folks. You can find us up there and also, of course, up on YouTube. And if you've listened to us this long, and we do appreciate you listening and watching us, why not like and subscribe? You've, put in the legwork. Why not see more of us? Because, you love these smiling faces. On behalf of myself, of course, Mr. Mike Faber, of course, Mr. Mike Gordon, of course, Miss Kelley Ceccato, and of course, Ms. Ashley Pauls. Can't mess that one up, ever. She would come out and haunt me.
I don't know.
She would throw me off the ledge in the Venice building.
I would never do that.
Sure, she would. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you all next time here on Earth Station One. Peace, and we are done. Ciao, everyone. Bye.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.